My goal is to provide you with something actually useful. We are going to deal with Sarah Boone's August 30th letter. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. As I indicated in a previous video, I'm not interested in helping Sarah play her game. So let's see if we can go through this and find something that you can actually use in your real life. I'm not going to read it word for word. Let's talk about fantasy for a minute before we get into the letter. It's relevant in Sarah's case. Beware the fantasist. Beware the person who has a fantasy in their head and tries to impose it on you. If you see that happening, you know they're not accepting who you are as a real person. You know when you meet somebody, you get an impression of them, and they tell you something or they show you something that lets you know, oh, you need to alter or modify your impression. The picture of them that you have in your head is incorrect, so you modify the picture in your head so it better matches with reality. Some people, however, instead of modifying the picture in their head, they will try to modify the other person to match the picture in their head. That's one thing to watch out for in your real life. Somebody who's doing that isn't seeing you, isn't accepting you, and will ultimately be controlling because they need to be. This is often, but not always, dangerous, but it is always toxic. As we go through this, see if you can identify the fantasies, tropes, like the innocent victim, pure as the driven snow, right? Black and white thinking. The princess in the tower, the damsel in distress, the savior, the frog who's really a prince, who can be transformed by the kiss of the princess. The princess who doesn't look like a princess to anyone else, but really she is. She just needs the prince to put that glass slipper on her foot. All of those things. All of those things that some people want to believe about themselves. There's reality, though, that creeps in that some people don't want to accept. Let's get into this letter. It's addressed to the judge, clerk of courts, and anyone in capital letters for that emphasis. As we go through this, note how frequently she uses emphasis, whether it's capitalization, underlining, exclamation points, adjectives, or snide remarks. Let's see if she can get through a whole paragraph without employing these things. Actually, if you go back and look at her previous letters, this is a pattern she has. The use of this emphasis on anyone is a tactic. She wants people to think or to get the impression that no one is hearing her, like she's all alone and ignored. Yet other times she complains she's getting too much attention and the public should leave her alone. The tactic here is to take the victim stance. It's the damsel in distress. Princess in the tower, right? Victim stance, and it is something we look for in threat assessment. The reason we look for that is not just to tease out the truth. It goes further than that. And it's not merely the person manipulating others through pity or blaming somebody else. It's even more than that. Certainly there's an aspect of that. One of the important considerations when somebody takes a victim stance, just from a threat assessment perspective, is justification. You see, if the offender can convince herself and others that she is the victim, then that bolsters her sense of entitlement and her justification to do what she wants to get what she wants. We've already seen her sense of entitlement on display. She has taken the victim stance all along. Except, of course, the time when she told the neighbor that if he hears DV going on in the house, that he should ignore it. And I'm just going to point out, since she's taking the victim stance, the person who died was Mr. Torres. Everyone who loves him suffers. Everyone who loves Sarah suffers. The gist of this letter is the same as the others. No one is communicating, everything is convoluted, she can't prepare for her trial, and she lives with perpetual question marks over her head. 2 of these things are true, and 2 are nasty, manipulative lies. Let's get the BS out of the way first. No communication. It has already been established that this is not true. It was even addressed by the judge more than once. And when she doesn't like the form of communication or the message, well, then it doesn't count. She does not listen to know. And that is another big red flag in respect to toxicity in interpersonal relationships, as well as safety. If someone doesn't listen to your no, I don't care if there's no other red flag, that one alone is enough. You can actually test this. Like if you're on a first date or something, or if you're just meeting somebody new, tell them no. Tell them no for something, even if it's small, and see how they react. If they treat your no as the start of a negotiation, no matter how charming, heck, especially if they're charming, because that tells you they have practice, then you've been given your red flag. In Boone's letter, she says, and not for the first time, that she can't prepare for trial. Nonsense. It's the lawyer who does most of the work, but she's not letting him. Well, he's gone. Now she has a new lawyer, but she wasn't letting Bankowitz do it. Let's deal with her 2 points, which are true. Everything is convoluted. Yes, it is. Because she made it that way. And she did so even before she was incarcerated. She did it on the 911 call when she lied. She did it before that when she called the police on Mr. Torres when she was actually the aggressor. The world must conform to her preferred version of reality. So of course it's convoluted. It's necessarily convoluted. And the water is not going to become clear as long as she continues to crap in it. But we're not supposed to notice that part. The other thing that's true is the issue of perpetual question marks over her head. There are 2 parts to this. One is that anyone accused does have a question mark over their head until the matter is resolved. And you know what? That's hard. You're talking about the rest of your life. It's hard. The other part of this with Sarah is that she seems to have perpetual questions, especially when she has been given answers she doesn't like, and she's never satisfied. I can have compassion for someone with anxiety. It's her behavior that's the problem. You see, she wants everyone else to regulate her emotions for her. This is different than just wanting some reassurance. She's expecting other people to regulate her anxiety or her emotion or whatever's going on. And her stubborn refusal to look at her own role in her problems tells you she will continue blaming others. Stop crapping in the water, Sarah, and it might clear up. All right, her main points have been addressed without making you drink that nasty water by me reading every single word out loud. In the rest of the letter, she acts like she doesn't know what's going on. Poppycock. Near the end of the letter, she says, am I really the only one who is trying to figure out anything? Capital letters underlined. Trying to figure out anything for and about my case to finally conclude. She's still waiting for Superman. I submit to you that the truth is exactly the opposite. The truth is that people have been working at trying to move this along while protecting her rights. She, however, has demanded ever more and is never ready because her never-ending questions, her cascade of questions like Niagara Falls, aren't answered. But the questions aren't really questions. Think back to fantasy. She wants the world to conform to what's in her head, right? So if you don't answer the question the way she wants, then it can't be right. and expecting others to regulate her emotions. So if you answer the question and she doesn't feel better or she doesn't believe you, well, then it's not good enough. So these aren't questions the way you or I would ask a question. Like, is there rain in the forecast? The questions are pleas and demands that the weatherman issue a binding order to God to make sure it does not rain, with a codicil that specifies the sun must shine on her in such a manner as to give her a heavenly glow, and she can bask in the warmth of everyone's adoration before she and Superman fly into that rose-colored sunset to celebrate her exoneration. But when the weatherman presents her with the binding agreement from God himself, she will suddenly question the existence of God and therefore the certainty of her well-crafted plans coming to fruition. And it will all be someone else's fault. The weatherman, God, the system of the universe, anybody but herself. You see, there's a part of her that knows the truth, no matter how hard she tries to convolute or bury it. She knows her plans are not realistic. She knows it's not going to happen how she wants. And she needs to be able to blame someone else. She needs to be able to say to herself, she could have had the sunshine and Superman, if not for the failings of others. It's the same with the trial. She cannot have that go ahead on the terms of the criminal justice system to sit under that cold light of examination where there are rules and limits on which games she is allowed to play, where people do work together, albeit within an adversarial system, to uncover the truth, to shine that cold light on that convolution and make clear the harsh and ugly truth. That terrifying day will come sooner or later. So now, in preparation, she must collect or fabricate as many scapegoats and excuses as she can find. She must mentally protect herself, just as she knows there's rain in the forecast. And Superman doesn't even know who she is. She knows what we will see at trial. She speaks about her truth. Her truth is a fantasy. She knows what she did to Mr. Torres. And if that comes out in court and she is convicted, then it's done. The fantasy melts away. The world crumbles to dust, and her sense of self crumbles with it. Perhaps she'll blame the rain. Stay safe. I'll talk to you in the comments.